Anyways, well, let's get started. Let me ask the Lord to bless this time, and then we'll kind of tell you where we're headed this evening. Thank you, God, for the day, and we continue to pray for people we know and even the people that we'll never meet or never know who are going through a pretty tough time now in Houston and Wimberley and other places dealing with floodwaters and just ask that you would be amazingly gracious, the body of Christ would rise up, and we would see the love of Christ exhibited through the churches and the fellowship of believers in a difficult time in difficult places, as well as in Acuna and different things that are going on. Thank you for the time that you've given us this evening. I want to thank you in advance for the gift of time that each person here tonight has given to us, and may we be good stewards of it. And it's in Jesus' name we pray, amen. On the way here tonight, I was at another meeting and then was on my way back and I was listening to the news. I'm kind of a news junkie, and they were talking about all these presidential candidates, and I thought that I'd get up tonight and before anybody knew anything, I'd say, I've brought you here tonight to announce my candidacy for president, but I'm not going to do that. So I want to tell you, really, thank you for being here. Both nights in a row, I've lost a bet. Last night, I said we'd have less than 30 people, and we had about 250. And then tonight, I don't know how many of you are here, a lot of you, and I lost that bet too. And so we're honored that you're here. I have a feeling we will underwhelm you tonight if you haven't heard what we're going to talk about, but I want to also tell you that tonight is really there's an intentionality between this, about saying next step, because probably within the next 2 to 3 months, we're going to ask you to come back again for another step. But, and I hope that the over or underwhelmingness of tonight won't discourage you from the next one. But anyways, I pulled some notes out from a year ago, almost a year ago, when I spoke to you, and it was August 17th, and I made the following statements. I said, if our why is right, we cannot go wrong. And our why we do what we do, and our passion as a church is we really believe Jesus Christ changes lives. That's not a phrase. It's not a slogan. We believe if we can get Jesus in front of someone, not Stonegate, but Jesus in front of someone, he will change a life. And if we get the opportunity to be in front of them, we want to do everything we can to put Jesus in front of them. And I also said, if our why is big enough, we're going to be willing to pay any price to see that happen. And then on the other page of notes from that same time, I said, if your why is big enough, you'll figure out what to do and you'll figure out how to do it. But then on that same day, I told you that most of us spend our lives fighting about and arguing over what we do and how we do it without ever giving a big enough thought to why we do what we do. I went on to say most churches die on what they do and how they do it rather than why they do it. As a matter of fact, if you've ever been to a church meeting that's gotten out of control or out of hand or caused a split, it has very little to do usually with the life of people's lives being changed by Jesus. It usually has something to do with the carpet or the pews or a change in the music or something. And so tonight is in the what we do and how we do it category. And the last thing I told you that August 17th, 2014 was a big enough why can even lead people to do stuff that people will say you're crazy for doing. And so tonight may not be any different than that. But we are, over the last several years or months, we've been talking about making some changes around here about the way we're doing things on Sunday. And I'll go into more detail about that. But let me just put right up in front of you what we're here to talk to you about tonight. And it's the following. We're going to move off of our Sunday night services, and we're going to move everything back to Sunday mornings. And what we're going to do, now, we're going to have plenty of time for questions here a little bit later on, okay? So if you're already wigging out or you've already got a question, just start writing them down or writing them on your phone. There'll be plenty of time. But let us walk with you through this process, and then we'll talk about it because there should be some questions. But what we're talking about doing is coming together in August and beginning again everything on Sunday mornings. And I think you can see the times there. 9 o'clock, 10:30 will be in 2 locations, and also at noon. By 2 locations, Our buildings over here, Building F, where we've called it Stonegate North, where we've had our Easter services. We're going to open that up. We will probably have 2 services at 9 o'clock as well. We'll probably need that pretty quick. Before I go into all those details, let me back you up and take you through this discussion. This is a discussion that we've been having both as a staff and with our elders for, since about September or October. I will tell you that sometimes it's been aggressive in our discussions, and we've had some disagreements and some agreements, but we think when we're finished with the evening, you'll see more of a bigger picture, because this is not just about a change. In order to change something, there's some big things behind this. I had a friend of mine, he was in the meeting last night, and I wrote his quote down. I've been in a lot of meetings with him lately in some things I'm involved with in the community, and he always says this. He always says, trust God, all others bring data. Don't know if you've ever heard that before. And you may not know, as a church, we study a lot of data. We count every Sunday. Luke will probably talk about this here a bit later on. We count all the empty chairs. We count all the chairs that are filled. We count numbers over there. We track. We have tracking charts. We track everything. And so a lot of this we want to show you of how we got to this decision. But let me just stop you for a moment. Let me back you up and back you down a little bit and remind you of a couple of things and really why we did 4 services in the first place. Let me just ask you, somebody's going to be able to answer this question. Do you guys remember when we started 4 services? Does anybody remember? Do what? February of what? Of what? February 2011 is when we started 4 services. Yeah, time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? It was the week after Super Bowl in February of 2011 is when we started 4 services. Let me tell you why. I remember I went back to the notes and talked about it, or looked what I read to you. We wanted to reach more people in the morning hours. We were getting crowded here in the morning, and we asked most of you, many of you who had started Stonegate Fellowship, we asked you to make a shift, and many of you who had bought into what we were doing for a number of years, we said, would you please move to Sunday nights so we can make room on Sunday mornings for people? Another thing was, and I already said this, really the big thing we asked people to do was to move so we could get more people here on Sunday mornings, and that has happened. We also told you back then, I wish it was myself who thought of this, but my old pastor, he's not old, I mean my previous pastor, 19 years ago, before I left for seminary, he said, whatever you do in a church, and he'd been doing, pastoral work for his entire life, he said, never change anything, just experiment with stuff, and just keep experimenting. And really our 4 services was an experiment, and here we are, and we're gonna try another experiment. One of our elders asked me this question. He said, so if we make this change, is there gonna be another change right after this? And I said, I hope so. I really do. In fact, I hope that the legacy of this place is people say, well, you ought to go because they're going to change something by the next week. And so I hope that's what we're doing to try to reach more people. But let me tell you some things, some lessons we have learned. And then what I'm going to do is Luke is going to come up and he's going to be the data guy and talk to you a little bit about some of the numbers. And then I will come back and talk about some implementation and then some questions, and then we'll spend our time answering questions. And I'll also let you know that if you have other questions, like for instance, you may have come here tonight thinking that we were going to talk to you about buildings. Well, that discussion's coming, and it's another meeting, but I'll be happy to answer some questions related to that tonight if you'd like me to, and also my candidacy as well. So let me take you through some lessons we've learned in the last 4 years. It's hard to believe, it really is, that it's been that long. We took a huge hit. Let me give you a loss first. When I meet with the seniors on Wednesday nights, we talk about highs and lows, and this was a low for us. One of the biggest lows and biggest setbacks for us when we went to 4 services was the hit we took in our small groups ministry on Sunday nights. It was a huge setback for us. We lost somewhere between 400 and 500 people who were actively involved in small groups. Now, the good news is we've made that back up, but we've only gotten back to what we lost. And one of the reasons was we didn't realize, we didn't realize as a community, the fact that we offered paid childcare for small groups on Sunday nights really made it easy on families to meet on Sunday nights. And many of you have made a shift to the middle of the week. But one of the things we're going to talk about a little bit later on is moving back to our small group ministry on Sunday nights and being able to have that as a huge night where we can do small group ministry. But that was a hit for us, just to tell you what the losses were. One of the wins, during that period, we started Stonegate Fellowship Odessa. and it's been a big win for us. The last few weeks have been huge for them. A couple weeks ago, they had in the old days, you called it a potluck. They had a meal on the lawn, and people showed up, which showed the adage is true. If you feed them, they will come. And it was a high attendance day. But there's something related to starting another campus we want to talk to you about a little bit later that has to do with the moving of these services as well. But that was a win for us. Some of the other changes, I want to skip through this because it's not real relevant right now. One big win for us was when we started the 4-service deal, it kind of was a hit for us in student ministry until this last September when we started student ministry on Wednesday nights. And that's been a huge win for us. It hasn't come without challenges or difficulties, but when you walk over there, probably not tonight because it's the last week of school for a lot of kids, but numerous times throughout this year, we've been pushing 400 students for Wednesday nights. And now when you look at what's about to happen with camp, I know Laura's over here probably about to break out in hives and Dustin's somewhere here shaking, but we're about to take 930 or some odd kids to camp. Well, that's a big deal for us. It's a big deal for anybody. And then 330, 340 kids to kids camp. But Wednesday nights have been a big hit for us with our student ministry, and we weren't able to do that before. We have discovered the growth hours for us are still Sunday mornings. There's an old adage in church world that says optimum seats at optimum hours. It doesn't matter where you live. The optimum seats for church are between the hours of 9 and noon. It just doesn't matter. I know that it doesn't sound very spiritual, but it's the truth, and Luke will talk more about that. Here's the big loss for us and a lesson learned. I don't think we realized how much 2 separate times of meeting would turn us into 2 separate bodies, and that it would also split sort of our resources. And let me explain that a little bit, and then Luke, you can go ahead and come on up here. In fact, just come on up here. Some of you, did you just get a cheer? Wow. Are you going to announce something I'm not aware of? Am I that bad already?
So I'll pay them later.
Yeah, exactly. So some of you grew up in church where you went to church on Sunday morning and then you went to church when? Sunday night, and then you went to church when? We'll see what you say. But some of you went for visitation on Monday night or Sunday night, and then you went on Wednesday night. Now, for us, you say, so what's the difference? Well, we really do the same thing in the morning and the same thing at night. But what happened is we have split our resources rather than focusing all of our energy in one place. And I don't think we realized what a difference that was going to make, and I'll talk more about that here in just a moment. But now let me turn it over to apparently famous Luke and let him talk to you about some of the numbers. So, wow.
All right.
We have lost control.
Who knew this meeting would be this exciting? Okay, I got to start with this. How many from this group were in a small group and their small group decided to meet here tonight? By a show of hands, how many of those? Pretty good amount. Okay, what about how many folks in here are Sunday morning folks? They come Sunday morning typically. All right, what about Sunday evening folks? How many of those do we have? All right, so pretty good mixture. Okay, so I'll just start with this. As we started looking through these numbers, and it's been months since this team that I was a part of, we started meeting, and really we wanted to answer the question, if we believe that God completely transforms lives, do the time that we have services on Sunday mornings, does it matter? And we figured out quickly that yes, it does matter because people in our community want to come to church in the mornings, just like Patrick was saying. And as we started meeting, we decided we need to make this decision not based on our gut or about what we think or what tradition says, but we need to look at Stonegate's numbers and what numbers we see at 9, 11, 5, 6:30. What are we seeing here? So we started watching trends, and we watched for months. And you go ahead and pull up the growth rates just to show you an example of one of the numbers. And we looked up numbers for the last several years, even since 2011. We monitored what hour children are coming. What hour did we have the most children? What hour are we the shortest on our servant leaders? We even looked up what hour do our original Stonegate folks, the folks who were at Abel Junior High, before we even had this building, what hour did those folks come and serve? You know, we found out that we have more original serving at 5 than we have at any other hour. But at the same time, we have more first and second time visitors coming in the morning, far more visitors coming in the morning than we have in the evenings. So as we started uncovering all this information, everything pointed to the fact that our community is a morning church community. Now, and we have folks in every single service who are plugged in. And we have folks who are in every single service who love their service. And I'll tell you that when I first started going through this information, my family attends the evening services. And they love the evening services. And I attend the 5 o'clock service. I like the 5 o'clock service. So there's a little bit of conflict that I have internally with what I liked versus what I was seeing, and all these numbers and all this research that we were combing through, because at the end of the day, we wanted to see as many people come to Christ as possible. And we were finding out that it was the morning time that where these folks who were not plugged in, the folks who on Saturday night decide, you know what, let's go to church tomorrow. Those folks come on Sunday morning. The folks who just come on an every once in a while basis, those are the folks who we want to see God transform their lives, and they're coming in the mornings. And here's just one of the numbers that we came up with. And this is the first quarter of 2014 versus the first quarter of 2015. This is our morning services had a 7.15% growth rate, which is a great growth rate. When you look at church metrics and how fast churches are growing, this is a great number that points to the fact that God is doing some great things in this church, and it's something that we can be excited about and we can celebrate. But at the same time, we were just flabbergasted when we saw what was happening in our evening services, that they had basically flatlined even since the beginning, since we started them in 2011. And so some of these numbers that we're looking at pointed to the fact that people want to come in the morning. Another example of that was Easter services this year. If you were here in the morning on Easter, you were a part of something that was just crazy. At 9 o'clock, this building was jam-packed. This auditorium was jam-packed. And then we filled up Stonegate North to the point that we had to add seats into the back of the little auditorium over there. And we had every seat full. And then at 11, not only did we fill up the auditorium, and we started sending people over to Stonegate North, but we had Stonegate North, the walls lined up with chairs. We filled in some of the aisles. We had no room for extra chairs, to the point that we started sending them back, and we had over 100 people in the lobby. The average church in America is about 100 people, so the church that we had in the lobby was bigger than average. So it was a great win, and we were so excited about that, but it pointed to the fact that the folks who we want to reach, the folks that need our focus and our energy, they want to come to the church in the morning. And our night churches had a growth too on Easter. Our evening services had an additional 150 people above average. But whenever you compare 1,300 versus 150 people, it explains and points to the fact that people want to come in the morning. So the biggest question that we had as we came to this realization that maybe we need to add a service in the morning or move services around and focus on the morning is, do we have enough seats for everybody? So quickly, let me show you a picture of what this auditorium looks like. We have 1,302 seats in this auditorium. And you look at this graph and you see 1030, Stonegate North, an extra 300 seats. And the way it looks, you're thinking, really, are you adding that many seats? This graph probably doesn't sell our point very well. But when I show you the next one with how many people are coming at each hour, you can see how many seats we have if we move our 5 and 6:30 to the morning. So if you'll go to the next slide, our 9 o'clock group is this first column. We average 831 people at 9, which leaves us 470 seats. So we have a pretty good chunk of seats at our 9 o'clock hour. But something else that's really interesting, at 9, we have a 20% growth rate. So when I showed you that 7% growth rate in the morning, at 9 it's 20%, which is unheard of. So earlier when Patrick said that it won't be long before we need a Stonegate North at 9, that's probably true, because if we keep going at the same rate, we will fill that up, or we need an additional 300 seats. So if you'll move your eyes over to the third column, what we've done there is we've combined the 5 and 6:30 numbers. It's 5 and 6:30. When you combine their averages, it's 812 people. So even without adding Stonegate North, we have over 900 available seats between 9 and noon with just the amount of people who are currently coming. Whenever we add Stonegate North, it's over 1,200 seats that we have at, as Patrick said, the optimum time, the optimum seats at optimum hours. That is when people want to come. We're able to add 1,200 seats. And the beauty of doing it this way is even after we add Stonegate North and we add a worship team to Stonegate North, and we get donuts over there, and we get our hospitality, and we get set up over there, it's really easy to add Stonegate North at 9, which gives us an additional 300 seats. And then if we needed a Stonegate North at 12, which is even 300 more seats. So as we looked at the numbers and this need to provide seats at a time when people wanted to be here, this is the best option that we could come up with. And we spent hours. I'll tell you, our team of about 9 people met for months, every single week for hour and a half, 2 hours every week, combing through this data, trying to figure out what is the best time for us to make the biggest impact possible. And this is what we landed on. And as I was saying earlier, I had an internal struggle with what I like versus what I was seeing in my desire for Stonegate to be as influential as possible. If you'll move on to the next slide, and I think this is on your handouts, so I want to cover it just for a second. It's really going to be setting Patrick up for what he's going to talk about as he talks about what we're going to do moving forward. On Sundays, we have an average attendance of 2,849 people. That is 9, 11, 5, and 6:30. That's all 4 services in here. That does not include the kids that we have, which is a huge number in itself. And yes, this 2,849, it includes some youth and some young adults who come and sit with their parents. For the most part, this is going to be adults who are in here on any given Sunday. And that doesn't mean much to you. But I show you that number so that this next number will make sense. It's how many servant leaders we have on Sunday that make this place run, which is on average 541. So on average, 541 people are either making coffee, serving donuts, serving the kids, doing parking, all the different roles that we have at Stonegate. It takes 541 people. And as our team started looking at what we thought was just service times, we kind of transitioned from, yes, service times are important, but we began to hope that this transition or this experiment, that this change would allow us to get these 2,308 people who are coming and they've plugged in. They've told us that they at least trust us enough to be here and that they want to learn and they want to grow spiritually, that this would be almost like a starting point for us to help these folks take their next step in service in some area at Stonegate. Because we know that whenever you plug into service, that it's an important part of the spiritual growth process. And as Patrick mentioned, once we went to 4 services, how we lost almost 400 people in small groups. Our hope is not to kill everything on Sunday nights. We're still going to have small groups, and we're even talking through other options of what Sunday nights may look like. But our hope is that Sunday nights will allow us to have another night where we can have free childcare, where we can where people will have an additional opportunity to go and get plugged into Christian community, because we know that it is valuable to not only serve, but to get plugged in with other believers, like-minded believers who will walk alongside you in this process. I know after we're done, Patrick's going to give you an opportunity to ask any questions, but I'll be down front. Any questions you have on numbers or our team, the process that got us to this conclusion, we would love to visit with you, because we've thought through a million different scenarios, and we don't want to leave anybody out. We want to talk through this with everybody, and we want to we want to show you the numbers that we came up with and how we got to this conclusion. So thank you.
They didn't applaud for you quite as rambunctious that time as they did when you came up. So I thought it was pretty good, Luke, but apparently not that good. So let me pick up where he left off and then continue to move down the place where we can answer some of your questions that you might have. One of the things that I hope you're picking up on is this need for us to push our energies into one place. And that's a critical thing for us to really get all of our servants focused in one area. Now, I'm going to say a few things from here on out, and some of them might be offensive. And I'm not saying that to be funny or to set something up, but I want to tell you, one of the things that happened to us, and if you have been here at Stonegate only recently, this could offend you. And let me just say it, okay? I'll just quit trying to be nice about it. So we asked a lot of what we would call lifers. Now we say, what's a lifer? Okay, now a lifer, I would consider myself a lifer in this way when it comes to church. If I were to quit doing what I'm doing here and move away somewhere, and I moved to Fargo, North Dakota, and decided to just move there for whatever reason, it had to be a God thing, obviously, I would move there, and one of the first things I'd do is I'd find a church. And I'd get plugged in, and I started attending. And after a while, once I found out this is where my family wanted to be and where we wanted to be, I'd start asking where I can serve. Because I've been doing this for so long that the bigger picture is, okay, where can I serve and how can I get plugged in and what do I need to do? Are you following me? Okay. There are a lot of people in our community that don't know about that, and a lot of them are showing up on Sunday mornings. A lot of you who are lifers started going to Sunday night because you heard the call that we needed space, okay? But we also took our people who were serving the most off of the Sunday morning field and moved them away. And we need to move some of those players back to where the most people are to be served. And so there's another reason behind that as well. But let me talk to you about some other things and sort of some process. And I'm going to kind of methodically go through my notes here, and then I'll get to some of the questions you might have. Let me talk to you about process. So we went from 4 services spread out. Now we want to go back to 4. We're not changing services, we're changing where they are. So it's not semantics, we're just moving 4 services back to the morning. Some people may not want to go over there to the north facility, and we may get to a place where we have to figure out how we're going to do that. But we have the opportunity to have 6 services on Sunday morning here, or 6 venues on Sunday morning. That doesn't count our Odessa campus as well. And if there's anybody here from our Odessa campus, I can share with you kind of some thoughts about where we are in relationship to service times as well. So as we go through the process, we're also going to be, and I'm just reading my notes here, reloading and reshaping our servant leader base in Stonegate Kids. Now let me pause on that for just a minute. And if you'll look at your notes, there's a part on there that says yes or no. I think it's on the back side as you turn it over. And let me talk about this for just a minute, because some of you here this evening may have never gone through the next steps process, which apparently in the United States is the longest membership process of any church in the world, but we're proud of that. But you need to go to next steps. People ask me, do you think you'll ever shorten that process? Probably not. It's just, you may not think it's valuable, but after you've walked through several years of this, it's very valuable. And if you have never been through the next steps process, here are some options for you in the summer. Now, we weren't going to do things in the summer until this came on the radar screen, and now you see 4 weeks worth of Sunday classes. You also see a one-day Saturday class that's on June 20th or July 11th. I know what some of you are saying. You're saying, oh, now you offer it on one day. And so I hear you. I used to say this years ago, get over it. And so that's the way it is. But if you've been through next steps, one of the next steps you need to take if you've never been through this is our servant leader orientation. Now, we're using this term servant leader a lot. I want to make sure you understand why we use that term. We're trying our best to eradicate the word volunteer from the church vocabulary. It's not a biblical word, but the word servant is. And Jesus tied servanthood with leadership. In Mark chapter 10, he said, whoever wants to be a leader must be willing to give his life away as a servant. So that servant leader orientation, either a 2-week class or a one-day Saturday class, you need to be a part of that. I think I speak for most people who've been a part of the class, even myself. I was just a person in the crowd listening to the material. I wish it had been material I'd heard even before I was in my work world about what it means to serve. This is not about how do you change diapers or how do you watch students. This is about the heart of leadership. So we want to redo some things and reshape some things to get ready for Sunday morning. Let me give you a tentative or a target start date for this change, okay? Next week. No, it's not next week. It's August the 2nd. Okay, I think that's the first Sunday in August. And if it's not the first Sunday in August, disregard the date and just remember the time. It's the first Sunday in August. We will start with the 4 services you have seen. 9, 2 at 10:30, 1 at noon. Then we'll move to 5, 2 at 9, 2 at 10:30, and then we'll move to 6 if we need to. But I also want you to see something else. It is a bigger picture here. Because some people may be thinking, so all you're doing is just trying to crowd up Sunday morning, and then what are we going to do? Well, here's one of the, I want to say the word greatest, but one of our big hopes for this is that we have such energy on Sunday morning, and it's not like we're missing energy anywhere, but we have enough energy that we can then begin to grow another core that we can start meeting and preparing for Midland Campus number 2 or Odessa Campus number 2. And therefore, we want to keep our energy focused towards that morning time. And when we get to a place where we already have an identified core, and that may interest some of you already, that we have an identified core that can start meeting and building E or building F and worshiping together and having a worship team and doing the same thing that Stonegate Odessa is doing. Our ambition is not to build the castle on 6,000 West Wadley, but to build the influence out from 6,000 West Wadley. So you say, well, where will that be? I don't know. It might be further east in Midland. And I know some of you might be saying, and I think I saw Mark Dingler in here, he'll remember this when I say this. I can remember about 16 years ago when people said, we need another church in Midland. And so you might be listening to me say this going, seriously, another Stonegate or another church in Midland? Absolutely. When this place is so much larger than it used to be. So there's more to this than us just trying to shift your time away from an evening that you enjoy or crowd up a Sunday morning. It's to move some momentum back to one place, but then begin to grow so we can grow out and not just grow in tightness around here. Our hope would be that possibly within the next year, we're already talking about where Midland 2 or even Odessa 2 would be located. And so there's a bigger picture to this than just loading up services. Because you may be asking this question, well, why don't you guys just build a bigger auditorium? Okay, so before you ask that question, let me answer that question. I've been talking to a lot of my friends around the country about auditoriums, people who have been in this business a lot longer than I have. And the last thing that this church needs, and the last thing that the churches around the country need, is one more 2,000 or 3,000 seat auditorium that 20 years from now sits empty because the people who started it left it, and now you have a church trying to survive in a large auditorium. But one thing we can do with our influence and our financial blessing is not put our future in jeopardy in $40 million building campaigns, but expand our future through cheaper endeavors of planting more churches and planting more satellites and establishing more churches. The idea is not to grow a Taj Mahal on the corner of 6,000 West Wadley. And I said this earlier, I'm going to say it again. The idea is to leverage the influence God has given us to expand to other places in Midland, Odessa, Andrews, and other places. Still to this day, the one place we get the most requests to have a Stonegate fellowship is College Station, and there you now know why. So anyways, there's more to that than just, I'm serious about that. We get that all, I'm amazed, little rabbit here. I'm amazed at how many college students are calling us and saying, our churches, we watch you on the computer and we do this. Can you just do something here? And that's really cool to see that happening as well. The other thing we want to do is be really rebirthing our groups ministry on Sunday night, and the ability for groups to meet in homes on Sunday nights, to come drive over here. You know, you can be all the way across town, and on Sunday, you can still drive over here in about 10 minutes, drop your child off, go to your small group, come back and get your kid, and then go about your week. And we took a hit there, and I think we can reboot that and see something take off there. Now, let me talk to you about two big concerns of mine, and then I'll take questions, okay? I have two concerns. My next to most important concern, how's that for grammar, is that there are some of you that are going to fit in the following category, okay? You heard us in 2010, leading up to 2011, talk to you about starting 4 services. And you might have even been one of those that said, Peyton's stupid, that's not going to work. That's not, you don't do church on Sunday night. But you went ahead and did what we asked you to do, and you made the sacrifice, and you started coming on Sunday nights. And it wasn't very crowded in here. You didn't feel the energy you felt. But here's what happened. It's not that you started liking coming to church on Sunday nights as much, but you really liked not coming to church on Sunday morning. And what you got used to was sleeping in a little bit. You found out that, you know what, it's a lot easier to shop at H-E-B on Sunday morning than it is any other day of the week. I mean, this is of God. And you just, I mean, all of a sudden you said, Peyton is amazing. I mean, I never realized, and you just started liking it, and you go out of town, and you'd be out of town on Saturday night, go, you know what? I can make it back Sunday morning and still go to church and be a good Jesus follower. And you loved what happened to you. I get that. Before we moved here, my wife and I went to church on Saturday nights in Louisville, Kentucky, and we had Sundays off, and we just had a great Sunday. I get that. I totally get that. And I can understand that might be something that we're asking to take away from you. But let me tell you the group that concerns me most. Because if that is you, if you are saying, well, we just like Sunday nights now, then I need to take you back to the why of 2010. And the why of 2010 was to try to reach more people. And the why of right now is still try to reach more people better. And many of you who are in Sunday night who like that are the very people whose hearts and lives we need reinvested where the most people are. Because let me tell you another reality about Sunday nights that's pretty clear. And that is there's a lot of us on Sunday nights who've known each other for a long time. And there's a lot of us who need to get back to the people we don't know anymore who are there on Sunday morning that need our energy. Now, let me tell you something else. We haven't set it up to now, but there's nothing right now that says we won't end up at a Sunday night service again. We can only have so many services on this campus. And you say, well, will you have services before 9 o'clock? No. I mean, it just won't. I've done 8:30. We've all done 8:30 who have been here for a long time, and 8:30 is a dog. And you may ask, how about after 12? No. It's just, there's like a barrier at noon. I think if we said 12:01, it'd cut attendance in half. I mean, it's just, there's a deal there. So we're going to only be able to do so much, and we may end up adding some services in the evening, which leads me to my second, our most important concern. We are deeply concerned about those who cannot come to church on Sunday morning because of career and other issues where Sunday night has been the only time they can come. There is a difference. There is a difference between the only time you can come and the only time you want to come. Big difference. And what we are wanting to find out, and that's why you see on the bottom of your notes there, it says there's an email that says next@stonegatefellowship.com. That email goes directly to Luke, okay? And what we're trying to find out, you can tell us this tonight as well. I'll be down here at the front. Our staff will be out there in the back. Superstar over here will be down here at the front as well. And what we want to know is who you are. Let me tell you why. And I had someone ask me this last night. They said, well, you've already decided we don't get to worship at night. And I told this young man, I said, you just put words in my mouth I never used. We are moving 4 services to Sunday morning. But we've got to find out if there is a real, legitimate need that we've uncovered that we have to make sure we meet in the Sunday evening. And what we have to do to meet that need, okay? And if that means we do something at 5 o'clock, that's a service. We don't know what it is yet. We're not ruling that out. But be very careful in your interpretation of it. And that's why I think I'm talking to some of my friends, okay, over the last many, many years that we might be mad at each other right now. But there's a difference between I want to and I have to. And who we're concerned about is the have tos. Because the want tos have to do the bigger thing. And the bigger thing is getting all of our energy where the most people are. And if you haven't been back here on a Sunday morning, I want to tell you something. You ought to show up here on a Sunday morning and just see how different your church has become and how different the audience has become and what this place is like. And we'd like to get our energies back there. So with that being said, I don't know if there's a slide for this, but I'll throw this up there if it's not. We say morning services allow us to do this, but I don't know if you've ever even seen this, but these are things that are central to us. We want to connect more people to the transforming message of Jesus Christ. That is what we try to do, connect people to Jesus. I hope that's what you're doing at your office. And by the way, one quick important rabbit here. Some people may ask the following question. Well, have you guys prayed about this? Okay, Yes. Okay, but you understand that's a setup question and a setup answer. Because, I mean, have you prayed about it? Well, okay, yes. And have you prayed about it? Okay, yes. And then what do we do if we come up with two different answers? I mean, if you want to know I'm just going to tell you, my real opinion of the matter of how the Lord feels about our service times, I don't think he gives a rip. I think he cares why. And then you just start doing what's and how's, and whether you meet on Friday nights at Graham Central Station, or you maybe not, and you meet Sunday whenever you meet, just figure out where to meet and how to meet, and the big why is why you meet. And so I'm not trying to say, well, we shouldn't pray about things, but a lot of times we start getting in fights saying we prayed about stuff when really we're just not happy about the what, and we've forgotten the why. So we want to grow servant leaders, and we want to influence a greater number of people from off this campus onto this campus. So again, I think a lot of this is a little bit underwhelming, but it might be challenging for change to try something new and to do something else. But having said that, you think of anything I left out, Superstar? And let me see if there are any questions. Any questions?